Welcome to the 14th episode of How to Build an RTS in Unity. In today's episode, we're going to focus on resource collection. Our goal will be to have a harvester that goes out and extracts some gold ore and then returns it to the closest refinery. As you can see in the video, once we've implemented this, you can have multiple harvesters working at the same time, so you can build up a strong economy. To get started, we'll head to Sketchfab and CG Trader, and we'll search for some models for the refinery, the harvester, and some gold ore. For convenience, I'll place these in the description. I've spent quite a lot of time showing you how to import models in previous episodes, so I'm going to skip through this part and import the models I've chosen directly into Unity. Once you've imported the models, let's drag them into the scene. So firstly, I'll take my harvester, I'll place it there, and I'll press R to scale it up a bit and raise it. Then I'm going to go to resources, which I've created as a folder, and we'll drag in some gold ore. And then we'll go to our newly imported refinery and we'll drag that in as well. For the refinery, I've simply taken the material and modified it to use the same material as the barracks so that it matches the current style. Okay, with all three models imported, let's start out by updating the harvester. So let's take one of our tanks. We can duplicate that, move it over here, and let's press F2 and rename this to harvester. Then we'll right click on this, go prefab and unpack it completely. Then we can expand this and we can delete the tank as well as the effects and as well as the attacking range as well. We won't need that. And then we can take our rover and drop it there. Go to the inspector and reset the position. Then we can select these two and scale them so that they fit. Then let's select the object, go to the inspector again, except we'll add it over here. Turn on gizmos, and we want to match the radius. So let's go down to the nav mesh agent and we can just adjust the radius slightly, as well as the capsule glider. We'll want to set the unit type over here. So let's open up our IDE and head over to the unit type enum. So we can double click on unit over here. And if we just click on unit type and hit F12, we'll go straight to the enum and we can just type comma and add in harvester. Then while we're here, let's do the same for the buildings. So we can go back over here, building, and we can go F12 on building type. And over here, we'll simply write refinery. We can hit save. And then let's go back to Unity. Okay, now we can choose harvester as the unit type. And of course, you can adjust the settings for the nav mesh agent as you wish. However, I'll keep them as they are. Now let's go to the refinery and we'll use the barracks as the basis for this. So we'll select the barracks, hit Ctrl D, move it over, call this refinery, right click, prefab, unpack completely. Once we've unpacked the prefab, for now we can remove the animator. We can always make a separate animation for this at a later point, but we won't focus on that. Let's go and delete the barracks model. Then we can bring in our refinery. We can reset the position. I'm going to rotate it on the Y 180 because I think it looks better. And we can press R to scale it up a little. And we can put this over here. Let's adjust the base as well. And that's okay for now. Then let's go to our refinery again. And over here, we'll choose refinery. Okay, then let's adjust the hover indicator and selection indicator. So we'll select them both at the same time, enable them, press R, and let's do it like that, and disable them again. Okay, then let's create the resource. So we have a bit of gold over here. It's pretty small. all I did is take the model I've included in the description. I have lightened this a little because it was quite dark. You can do the same. And let's take this and we'll just press Ctrl D and we'll move it up. Okay, with that done, let's now go and collapse that, and we can take our barracks, Control D, we can move it over here, and we'll right click prefab, unpack completely, and let's call this gold ore. Then we can bring it down here, make this a child, and we'll want to reset the position. Then we can delete the barracks model, delete the base, and we'll open the inspector, remove the animator, we can remove the nav mesh obstacle, we can remove the building script, and we'll set the collider to trigger, and we can just use these settings over here to adjust it so that it matches. Okay, with that done, let's head to our project tab, go to scripts, and let's create two new scripts. The first being resource, and another one would be called harvester. All right, with the gold ore selected, let's go to the inspector and let's drop the resource script onto here. This is currently saying missing, so we can just select none. And let's open up the selectable object script. All right, in the same way that we have fields for this unit and this building, let's do the same thing for the resource. All right, then we'll save that. All right, and one other change that we'll make before we go back is we'll head down to on mouse enter on selectable object, and we're simply going to take this part over here and we're going to move it to say if hover indicator is not null, then set it to true. And before we head back, let's go to the building script, and in the same way that we have on the unit script a reference to the selectable object, we will do the same thing for the building. And since it's public, we don't need to make it a serialized field. And before we go back, we can simply go to the start method and we'll say selectable object equals get component selectable object. Now, before we continue, let's hit save and go back to Unity. And while we remember, let's go to the selectable type and choose resource. Let's open up our script again, and now we can go to the game manager script. Let's head over to the TargetSelectable method. Okay, in this method, we're going to make some changes to allow us to target the gold ore patch. So let's delete this first section here. We actually don't need to check whether it's a unit anymore. And right below the is unit alive check, let's say if selectable.getSelectableType is equal to selectableType.resource. And then we'll put an else statement to keep the existing logic. And if it is a resource, we then want to make sure that it's actually a harvester. In order to do that, we'll need to be able to get the unit type. So let's go back to unit, and we can then scroll down over here. And I think down here we can just say public unit type, and we can say get unit type, and we're just going to return the unit type. Now we can go back, and then we can just say if selected units i.getUnitType is equal to harvester, Then we'll want to say selected units I dot set target, and we're still going to target the selectable. The only reason we're doing this is to make sure that if it is a resource, only our harvester targets it, but we still want the selected units to move there in case they have more units selected. So we'll have another line which just says selected units I dot move to destination, and we'll just say selectable, nope, selectable dot transform dot position. So we'll just send them to the position, but we won't target the resource for the units which are not harvesters. Okay, let's scroll further up. If we right click on target selectable, find all references, and double click it over here, you'll see that we do a raycast on handle right clicked at position. And this currently checks on the unit layer. So I think what we'll do is over here, we'll add another serialized field, and we'll call this, make this a layer mask as well, and we'll call it selectable layer, because we probably want to keep unit layer for other stuff. Then we can go back here and we can just type selectable layer, and now it will get both. While we remember, let's go and set this value. So go back to the game manager, and selectable layer will go unit, and we'll also need one for the resource. So let's go refinery, nope, let's go gold ore, add layer, and type resource. Go back here and select resource. You'll need to add building layer at a later point when you add in your building attack logic. Then let's go back to the gold ore and put that on the resource layer, no. And also make sure that we update the culling mask for the camera so that it doesn't hide that. If we go to our camera holder, main camera, over here, and just choose resource, and it will include that. And then we can go back over here and we can hit save. Okay, the next thing we'll need to have in the game manager script, since we already have it open, is a function which gives us the closest refinery to a certain point. So currently we have get first building of type, so probably good to put it somewhere near there since it also returns building. So we can say get closest refinery to point, and we'll take in a vector 3 and say target point. And we'll also want to take in the team, because we only want to get the refinery for that team. And we'll do something quite similar to what we did below, where we're going to cycle through all of the buildings. Let's start out by creating a local variable of type building, and we'll say closest refinery, and we'll set that to null. Then we'll want to loop through all of our buildings. So we can say I is lower than all, nope, lower than all buildings dot count I plus plus. And then we'll say if all buildings I dot get building type is a refinery, then we want to say if the closest refinery is null, then closest refinery is equal to all buildings I. Otherwise, this would imply that the player has more than one refinery, and now we want to check that this refinery is in fact closer than the one already assigned. So if we say if vector 3 dot distance, and we set target point to the building I dot transform dot position. So if this distance is lower than vector 3 dot distance target position of the currently assigned closest refinery, and only then would we overwrite it with all buildings I. Okay, I think that should be it, and then we can just return the closest refinery. And we'll also want to make sure that the refinery belongs to this team. So even before this check, we can say if all buildings I .SelectableObject.team get team equals team, and we can just wrap it all in that. Okay, now let's head back to the unit script, and we can head to the fixed update method. And from here, we'll want to make sure that we don't apply attack behavior to the harvester since it cannot attack. So we'll say if not unit type is harvester, and then we'll just wrap all of this in that. Doesn't like that. Yeah, okay. That's because I did it wrong. You should do it like that. And we'll also want to add a method to our EconomyManager. So let's go over here to the EconomyManager. Let's create a public void, give credits. And we'll take in an integer of credits to give, and the team, player team. Then we'll do a switch on player team, and we'll go case blue. And if it's blue, we'll say blue player credits plus equals credits to give. Do a break and do the same for red. And a break. And as a last step, let's call update player credits. Okay, now let's head over to the harvester script, take out the template code, and let's create a few fields. First one will be a serialized field. Let's say private unit and build this unit. And let's do a private building and call it target refinery. Then we'll do private float, harvesting time, and we'll set that to, let's say, 3 seconds. And another private float, harvesting time remaining, and then we'll start at 0. Or let's give it a default value of 3. And then we'll say private float, resource minimum range. Let's say they need to be 2 points away from the destination in order to extract, and a private float for the drop-off minimum range, and that would be more generous because the building is a lot bigger. We'll go private int and units per load. Let's say it gets 100, and private pool is harvesting, which is false. And a private pool is returning load, and it will also be false. Okay, then we can bring back the update method. Okay, before we continue, let's head back to the unit script, and we can go to the get unit type over here, and we can also expose get. This would be a selectable object, I think. And we'll call this get target. And that's just going to return the current target. You can call it get current target. Then we can head back, and now we can say if this unit dot get current target, no, get current target is not null. Then we'll first check if they are returning a load. We'll say if returning load, and if not, let's open up the else statement here. Okay, so since the unit has a target, that means we have a target patch of gold ore, and the first thing we want to do is check if they are currently harvesting, and if they are, then we'll want some logic, and if not, we'll want some other logic. So firstly, if they are, we'll want to say if the harvesting time left or remaining is bigger than 0, then we'll want the harvesting time remaining to go minus equals time.delta time. So that's just letting it count down with real time. And otherwise, we'll now want to say, okay, they're returning the load because the time is now finished. So we'll say is returning load equals true, is harvesting is false. We'll also want to set our target refinery to GameManager.instance.getClosest refinery to point. We'll give our position, transform.position, and we'll also give this unit SelectableObject.team. And we'll also want to send this unit move destination, and we'll send that to the target refinery.transform.position. And that should be okay for now. Now let's go down to the logic here for if not harvesting. And what we'll then want to do is check how far away we are from the resource. Because if we're in this block, it means that the unit has a target. And if the unit has a target and they're a harvester, then it must be a gold ore patch. So they should already be on the way to the resource. And all we need to do is check the distance. So we then want to say vector3 target position is equal to this unit dot get target, get current target dot transform dot position, and we want to say vector3 dot distance and transform dot position to the target position, and if that's lower than or equal to the resource minimum range, then we want to say is harvesting equals true, and harvesting time remaining is equal to harvesting time. Okay, we've made an error, so need to write if. Then let's go back to returning the load. So it's set to true over here when the time has gone down to 0. Okay, if they are returning the load, we'll then want to check the distance to the target refinery, and we'll say if vector3.distance transform.position to the target refinery.transform.position is lower than or equal to the drop off minimum range. Then we want to give them money. So we'll go EconomyManager.instance.give credits, and we'll say units per load, and we'll also give this units SelectableObject.team, and we'll want to say is returning load equals false, and set the target refinery to null. We do this in case the refinery happens to get destroyed in the time that he's mining, so that he finds a new refinery each time. And then we'll go this unit dot move to destination, this unit dot get target dot transform dot position. Okay, that should be it. Now let's head back to Unity. Let's select our harvester, and let's make sure that we add the harvester script, and we'll want to assign this unit, so we can just drag the game object onto it. Then we can see that if we select our gold ore, the center position is over here, and we won't need the canvas, so we can delete that. Select the parent object, and we want to make sure that we have this resource assigned, so we can drop that over there. And as you can see, it's off center at the moment, so let's see what's happening. So that's just the minimap indicator, so we can put that roughly there, and that should be okay. then we just want to get the collider in the right place. So you can also press this button over here and just pull these bounds over here. This is just so that we can target it. Let's give it a try. And we'll select our worker, right click on the gold, wait for him to do his thing. He heads back, and as you can see, the money goes up and he goes back to his patch of gold. Great. What we can also do is take the gold ore and we can just duplicate it to make a bit more of a mineral-rich area. Maybe we'll move the refinery back a bit for this. And then we can take the harvester. We should make a prefab out of him, so let's do that. Prefab units, and create a folder for him. Harvester. And just drag him in there. And then we can take our harvester, put him up here. And then we can duplicate him and put one over here and duplicate again. Let's put the other one over here. Then let's grab the refinery and we can duplicate that, and let's move it down here and maybe rotate it a little so that we can test whether he goes to the closest refinery. Let's go into our game. We can run it. So let's take this harvester and send it to this patch. Then we'll take this guy and send him here. And let's take this guy and we can send him there. And as you can see, they all go to the closest refinery. Okay, that should be everything that you need for the harvesting cycle. In the next episode, I will show you how to construct a refinery and then how to produce harvesters from the refinery. Until then, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.